Good afternoon and welcome back to Football League World TV. We're at the end of a very, very busy Monday with the EFL Transfer Zone. I'm your host, Alfie Burns. Joining me, Ben Wignall and Marcus Ally. Ben, how are you getting on? Did you have a good weekend?
So. Yesterday was a bit of a, hoping a penalty shootout between North End and Cardiff, and it got ruined in the last 5 minutes, ruining my enjoyment. But yeah, time to talk about some transfers before getting back to league action this week.
Absolutely. Marcus, how about you? Good weekend?
Yeah, it was good, thank you. Really enjoyed the FA Cup action. Great to see the scenes at Kidderminster. I think that was, an incredible result. But as Ben mentioned, it's good to be getting back into some league action and focusing on the transfer window.
Absolutely. It was good to see the FA Cup going centre stage this weekend, but of course we are slap bang in the middle of the January transfer window as well, so there's plenty of rumours floating around which we're hoping to cover this afternoon. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, so if you're joining us, please like and share this stream and get involved in the comments if you want to get in touch with us. Right, we're going to get straight into it with our first bit of transfer news. First up, we're going to discuss Cardiff City's interest in Leeds United right-back Cody Drameh. Marcus, I'll come to you first. Drameh has been on the fringes of Leeds' first team this season in the Premier League. Do you think he'd be a good signing for the Bluebirds?
I do, yeah. I definitely think it's an area that they need to strengthen. I think maybe it says less to his ability this season of all seasons, where availability has been a lot tougher for squads, so younger players are getting a bit more exposure on the bench, making the odd sub appearance. I think Drameh did get one start for Leeds though in the Premier League, and it feels like a natural progression for him to go out and seek some regular game time in the Championship. Whether a potential relegation battle is the right environment for him to do that, I'm not so sure, but it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Cardiff not maybe as out in front in the race as maybe we thought yesterday, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. I don't really see why he shouldn't go to Cardiff. I think it depends where he really fits into the system under Steve Morrison. He's been happy to play a three at the back system, which didn't get a lot of success under McCarthy, but stick with that since he came to the helm. And it must be an attractive destination from Leeds' point of view, given his willingness to blood some youngsters into the side this season. I do sort of wonder whether he'd slot in nicer on the right side of a back three or as a right wing back option. Obviously, playing right back for Leeds, that hasn't been a position that's been in Morrison's formation in recent weeks. So it's interesting to see where he'd fit in that regard. But I think it definitely seems like, a natural progression and a move to the right division at the right stage of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. As Marcus sort of mentioned there, Leeds are sort of stalling on the deal, I'd say, a little bit at the minute in terms of the waiting to see whether they can afford to let Drameh go, given he's made 3 appearances so far this season in the Premier League and he's very much involved. He came off the bench yesterday against West Ham in the FA Cup. He's had to fill in at times, and whether Leeds' threadbare squad can afford to lose him at this stage of the January transfer window is massively up for debate. Ben, how long do you think Cardiff can afford to wait on this for Leeds to give it the green light?
Well, if he's coming in as a right wing back, I know they've got Perry and G there. I don't think he's impressed that much since he came in from Crewe. And if it's the case of Drameh coming in at right wing back, then Steve Morrison must believe that he's a big improvement on NG. If he's looking at him as a left wing back, though, I think it might be pretty desperate. Because obviously Ryan Giles went back to Wolves, didn't he? And we don't know if he's going to be heading back there. So if it's for the left hand side, which I don't know if he'll fill in there or not. It could be pretty desperate. I think he could wait a few weeks if it's for the right hand side. But I think it all depends on Leeds' situation or Luke Ayling's back fit. Stuart Dallas can play at right wing back, and I don't know how long Shackleton's going to be out for, but it might depend on him getting back fit to let Drameh out. But if it's for the right wing back role, I don't think Morrison will be too desperate. But you don't want other teams coming in for him. Maybe one's higher up the table. I know Fabrizio Romano said Swansea were interested, but it did seem like Cardiff had won the race. So I think it will be disappointing for them if someone else did end up, pipping them to Drameh. But I think they should be able to, get it done if Leeds play ball.
Yeah, and I think that's my overriding feeling with it there. As you mentioned, Ben, that other clubs could get interested in this deal if Leeds are willing to let Drameh go, because, at this moment in time, it doesn't really make much sense from Leeds' point of view to let him go. I'll stick with you here, Ben. Do you feel that that if Leeds are willing, then there might be a little bit more interest than just Cardiff and Swansea?
There could be, yeah. I mean, it's obviously it came out very quick last night after the Leeds and Cardiff FA Cup games, and this week if there's a couple of clubs in the league that do have a vacancy, at right wing back, then you see there's a lot of clubs looking at similar kinds of players up the leagues. The likes of Stoke, Cardiff, and QPR have been looking at the similar kind of centre backs. I've noticed like Harley Dean, Jonathan Panzo, so them kind of clubs coming for a right wing back as well. So I think Cardiff's league position isn't the greatest in terms of trying to get players in, but I think it all comes down to game time, not league table positions when you're looking at development for players. And I think if Drama can go in there and be guaranteed first team football, then I think it is the right move for him.
Right, let's get into our next bit of transfer news. Swansea, Huddersfield Town and Queen's Park Rangers are all said to be interested in signing Wolves' Ryan Giles, who of course has been on loan with Cardiff City earlier in the season. 9 assists for the Bluebirds there, and he was a shining light. What's been a difficult season for Cardiff. Marcus, I'll come to you first. This would be a very good deal for any one of these 3 clubs, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think QPR maybe the most realistic promotion push, but Ryan Giles has sort of, he's a tried and tested player at Championship level now. This would be potentially his 4th loan spell in the division in just 2 seasons after playing at Coventry and Rotherham in 2020-21. I personally would see the best fit as Swansea City. I do see him as an upgrade on Jake Bidwell at left wing back. They've lost that attacking impetus in Ethan Laird. Maybe they can make amends for that on the other side. Can also play further forward as well, which we saw at the beginning of the season under Mick McCarthy. Huddersfield, I'm not so sure. I think it depends on whether this would push for some interest or a potential exit for Harry Toffolo. I know his contract situation's a bit debatable at the moment on whether clubs will engage in that. So I would see Swansea as the best fit, but I can see him gaining good experience at all 3. It just comes as the ball is in Wolves' court really, on where they see what club will get the most out of him. If they wanted to move him higher up in the Championship, then QPR is probably the obvious shout, given that the predicament that Cardiff were in when they recalled him.
Right, 2 questions then, Ben. Where does he fit in best, and who needs him the most?
It's hard to say. I think with the options that I don't think he'll go to Swansea. I think with the Cardiff connections, I think he'll make himself a bit of an enemy there, and I don't think he wants to do that at this stage of his young career. And they've got Manning and Bidwell as well, haven't they? Swansea, unless one of them's going, I can't see him potentially fitting in there. Huddersfield have got Harry Toffolo, Josh Ruffles, who's not made many appearances, but I think he played on Saturday, if I'm right in thinking. So he's getting a few more chances. QPR, though, I think Sam McCallum's been out injured for a while, and I think Lee Wallace isn't getting any younger. So I think out of those 3, I think QPR, obviously they're high up the table as well, and he could do with someone, another option whipping in balls to, Lyndon Dykes for him to put away. So I think out of those 3, QPR would be the best fit, but I just don't see why they wouldn't send him back to Cardiff. He's got 9 assists this season. He's obviously provided a very good outlook from set pieces where they've got a lot of, threats from inside the box. So I think if Wolves are going to send him back, I just don't see why it wouldn't be to Cardiff. But if that's out of the question, then definitely out of those 3 teams, I can see, QPR being the best fit for Giles.
Absolutely, one to keep an eye on there for sure. Elsewhere in the Championship, Stoke looks set to sign Taylor Howard-Bellis on loan from Manchester City. This looks like quite a fast-moving transfer with a medical in the sort of next 24 hours. Marcus, do you think this is a good signing for Stoke?
Absolutely. I'd be really impressed when they can get this one over the line. I really liked him at Blackburn last season, that sort of brief loan spell. And I think it speaks volumes to what Man City kind of speak of him, to be giving him this much senior football experience at the age of just 19. I think usually they like to maybe mollycoddle their players and sort of implement their philosophy into their DNA for a little bit longer before sending them out on loan. But at 19, it would be his 3rd loan spell off the top of my head. I think that shows that they rate him a lot and can maybe even see a future for him there. It's also needed at Stoke with Ostergaard being recalled by Brighton, then sent out to Genoa. And of course, Harry Souttar's injury and the fact that they play a 3 at the back formation means you need a little bit more cover for centre back than maybe you do otherwise. So yeah, I think this would be really impressive business and would enhance Stoke's chances of breaking back into that top 6 in the coming weeks.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I sort of always have felt that the sides in and around the top 6 that can get these kind of deals done with the big 6 from the Premier League, the loan deals for young players like this, they often go on to do quite well in the Championship. Ben, do you think that this is the type of deal we maybe expected Stoke to look to do this window?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they've clearly got good connections to, Premier League clubs to get these players. Ostergaard, I think he probably started well, but obviously he was on the bench a little bit towards the end of his time. That's why Brighton recalled him. But I think Stoke, in particular, in a good position, especially with, the North West clubs, because, not far away from like your Man Cities, Man United. It just suits them to send them to Stoke. And I think Harwood Bellis, even though he has been at Anderlecht this season, he has been playing quite a bit until the end of November, I believe, until he's kind of been on the bench since then. But I think he can slot into that defence pretty easily, with Souttar's injury, Ostergaard going back. And I just remember seeing it. He's only 19, he turns 20 at the end of the month. And I remember seeing him for the first time as a Man City player when they played PRE in the Cup in 2019. And I thought he was a very good talent. He kept whoever we had up front very quiet at such a young age. And, he played pretty well at Blackburn last season. And, to continue development in the Championship at this stage of his career is probably the best move for him. And, he'll have experience next to him. One of, Danny Bafford, James Chester, and we play with Ben Wilmot as well. So that's a pretty solid back line for a team who've looked quite shaky in the last few weeks. Hopefully, even though he's a young player, he can come in and, make an impact, which you expect him to do.
Absolutely. A signing that I think we can all sort of get behind and say that that's a good deal. Right, on to the next piece of news now. It's been reported over the weekend that your club, Ben, Preston North End, are interested in signing Tom Pearce from Wigan Athletic. Is this the type of signing that Preston need?
Well, we do need a left wing back, I think, and I think we are targeting one, whoever it may be, but I'm not particularly sure Pearce is the answer. I was aware of him when he broke through at Leeds in last season. He seemed to be, doing well at Wigan, even though they were struggling in the table with the off-field issues and whatnot. But season got ended early through injury. I've got a friend who's got a season ticket at Wigan, and he said he's not really come back from that quite well. The injury. I think he had interest from Barnsley at the end of the summer window, which didn't come to fruition, and he believes his head, might have been turned. He's not featured that much this season. I think he's played 7 times in the league. I think Tendai Derek was covered at left back, and then James McLean's coming at left wing back when the system's been changed. He's still got time to develop. He's only 23 years old. I'm just not sure he can come into a Championship team right now like PNE and make a big impact. I think we've seen Ryan Law like to set up his wing backs playing very high up the pitch, and I think we probably need someone who's a bit more productive in terms of goals and assists. I don't think Pearce has particularly brought them so far in his career, and I just think someone like a Conor Grant from Plymouth's probably a better target, for what Ryan Law wants and needs from his team. But I won't complain if we do get Pearce. He's got time on his side to develop into what Ryan Law wants, but it's not something that's particularly enthusing me right now.
No, when he did break through at Leeds, he was good, was Pearce, and he was good getting forward. And obviously his deal's up at the end of the season at Wigan, which makes this a very, very affordable deal for Preston to do. As you mentioned, his career has been a little bit up and down, Ben. But given the fact that he's out of contract, do you think that that's maybe what appeals to Preston at this time?
Could do, yeah. It should only cost a couple of £1,000 if we do try and do that deal. And I believe that Wigan are trying to tie him down to a new contract, even though that he's not been a regular this season. So they clearly still rate him highly. It's just a case of, is he better than what we've got? We've got Josh Earl there, who's kind of flattered to deceive this season, even though he had a lot of potential a few years ago. And I just think that, Ryan Lloyd does like his wing backs to produce goals and assists. I'm just not sure that, at this stage, Pearce can do that. I mean, admittedly, I've not seen that much of him recently. I remember watching a little bit for Leeds when he brought through, but I think we might have our eyes on a few targets. I'm not sure Pierce will, be the one that comes through the door, but he certainly seems like a decent option, if not like a guaranteed starter at Championship level at this point.
Yeah, as we've sort of touched on there, Wigan do want to keep Pierce, beyond this transfer window and beyond the summer and get him tied to a new deal. Marcus, do you think it's a massive blow to the Latics if they do lose him this January?
No, I wouldn't be worried at all, to be honest. He's featured quite sparingly this season, as Ben mentioned. Liam Richardson's been happy to put in Tendai Darikwa and even James McLean on the left-hand side ahead of him. And at 23 years old, I think the experience that he's been able to gain is significantly less than most players at that age, considering the way he broke out at Leeds as well. So, yeah, I think this one would be a little bit of an uninspiring signing. And I do think the contract situation plays more into the interest rather than seeing the players' performances this season. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. He's going to have to consider his future because due to the promise that he's shown in the infancy of his career, he will probably have suitors looking for a bargain. Whether that'll be in the Championship or to stay in League One remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm not too enthused, similar to Ben on this one. I think Preston could probably do a bit better considering how high priority the wing-back position is for Ryan Lowe.
Yeah, it's be interesting to see what Preston do between now and the end of the transfer window. The next piece of transfer news centres around Sunderland and Sheffield United. Football League World's understanding is that Daniel Jebison is somebody that's on Sunderland's radar, but a deal this month isn't forthcoming. Do you think that Jebison is the type of player that Sunderland need this month, Marcus?
Yeah, I'd definitely say they need to add some competition for places with Ross Stewart. We'll see what comes of Freddie Ladapo's situation, handing in his transfer request at Rotherham. Football League World had the exclusive as well that Sunderland are possibly considering a deal for him, the 28-year-old Jebison, 10 years younger, 18, 8 goals in all competitions this season. It was a bit of a surprise move because we saw some interest from Sunderland in Jebison in the summer. He ended up going to Burton Albion. Maybe Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's reputation as a player could have played into that a little bit. I was a little bit surprised to not see him go to such a high-profile club. The intensity of the promotion push at the Stadium of Light would probably have sort of one or two influences on Jebison. He could rise to it, or it could be quite a harsh atmosphere for an 18-year-old to step into. They've got to add a striker in January, whether it be Ladapo or Jebison. So I think that is an area of priority that we might see rumble on for the rest of the window. Whether Daniel Jebison is the name to fill that void, no one's going to get in ahead of Ross Stewart, given that his recent form remains to be seen. I think Sheffield United will be intrigued on what to do with Jebison because he has showed a lot of promise in his first sort of regular senior action in the first half of the season at the Pirelli Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that's the short term when it comes to Jebison. But I think long term, we might as well touch on that while we're on the topic of the striker. Surely his future lies at Bramall Lane now. Now Paul Heckingbottom's been appointed as Sheffield United's manager. Heckingbottom was the one to give him a chance last season in the Premier League. And my understanding of it is that there's been some consideration taken to bringing him back to Bramall Lane. Whether that's going to happen now, I'm not 100% sure. But Ben, do you sort of agree with that Jebison's long-term future has to be at Bramall Lane?
Yeah, when you look at the options that Sheffield United have got anyway up front, Sharp and McGoldrick, in the last stage of the career, Muse's contract's coming to an end. So, I think there's a chance there if they're still in the Championship next season, Sheffield United, that Jebison can go in there and start. He's finally coming into form at Burton Albion after a quiet first few months, and with Kane Hemmings potentially departing Burton as well, that could make him the leading man for the second half of the season at the Pirelli Stadium. So I think Sheffield United should probably, if they're considering recalling him, I think they should probably keep him there for the rest of the season, let him become that leading man and see where it gets him. I think he scored like 5 goals in his last 7 games or something like that at Burton. And then see what happens in the summer, because he can definitely go back there and make an impact in the Championship next season, whether that's as a starter straight away or gradually coming in off the bench and then becoming a starter. He's cleared the Heckingbottom lights him after giving him his debut last season. So, yeah, I think he's got a bright future at Sheffield United, and he's one that he shouldn't be looking to sell to anyone.
Final piece of transfer news now. Football League World understands that Middlesbrough are bracing themselves for Premier League interest in Jed Spence. Maybe not this window, but certainly in the summer. And they're expecting something around the £10 million mark for the fullback, who is, of course, on loan at Nottingham Forest and doing very, very well under Steve Cooper at the minute. Marks, I'll come to you first. Do you think that Spence is good enough for the Premier League?
He's definitely shown in glimpses, yeah. His form this season at Nottingham Forest has been far more convincing than I think any we saw at Middlesbrough. It was clear the potential he had when he sort of broke out into the first team under Jonathan Woodgate in 2019-20. Couldn't really get a positive relationship going with Neil Warnock. I think being a specialist wing-back was maybe a little bit of a foreign concept for Warnock to deal with. Didn't really know whether to play him as a fullback or a winger, but he's really found his home at the City ground, and Steve Cooper's getting the best out of him. 10 million seems like a lot. I don't know how long he's got left on his contract at the Riverside off the top of my head, but I think that would be a solid offer, really, given what he's shown. I think he's still got a way to go defensively, and whether he's going to stay as a specialist wing back. So many teams playing three at the back formations at the moment that we probably will see that formation develop and become a lot more common, or whether his future could lie a little bit further forward. So yeah, be interesting. Premier League ready in the future? I would definitely say yes, but for the end of this season and potentially next season, I'm not completely sold yet. It was a great performance against Arsenal last night, but I still think he's got a way to go, particularly defensively. I think in the Premier League, he could get exposed a little bit if it's a side that weren't accustomed to having much possession. So yeah, in the future, looking at a little bit more longer term, I could definitely see Jed Spence playing in the Premier League and possibly even justifying a price tag like that. But I think it's a little bit too far ahead to be thinking now. I think he's got a lot of development to go before justifying anything like that. And who knows, maybe he'll be there with Middlesbrough next season.
As you said there, the performance last night from Spence against Arsenal for Nottingham Forest, that's only going to drive the price up if he keeps doing that at prime time on ITV. Ben, Max has sort of touched on what he feels about the £10 million fee. What are your thoughts on it?
Very steep. He's up until this season when he went out to Forest. He's kind of in and out of the team at Borough early under Neil Warnock. I think it was Woodgate who gave him his debut a few years ago. But, he's clearly proven he's a very good wing back at, championship level. He's not really had the chance to play that position quite regularly. It's either been, at right back or right wing. And I think this role at Forest clearly suits him right now. 10 million, steep right now. I want to see what happens to him between now and the end of the season. But he's clearly been performing very well for Forest. Even, if his stats, assists-wise, hasn't, really shown that he is a driving force down the right-hand side. I'm not surprised that Premier League clubs are looking at him. I think they were in the summer as well, before Forest did make the move to get him in on loan. But yeah, I can definitely see why, after yesterday's performance in particular, that this club's interested. But I think Forest will be a bit, irritated now that they've not been able to, kind of put a permanent deal in place in the loan. But of course, Borough won't want to do that the way he's been playing. So I can see him going back to Borough in the summer, seeing what the situation is. But if there is 10 million bids coming in, then I could see Borough potentially selling in the summer.
Of course, he is Middlesbrough's player, but we need to talk about Nottingham Forest, because Steve Cooper's the one that's really sort of elevated Spence's game this season at the City ground. Obviously, looking ahead to the summer here and a potential £10 million move out of Middlesbrough. Marcus, where do you think that sort of leaves Forest with their chances of signing him more permanently, let's say?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Player power definitely has a more stronger role to play than maybe it did in years gone by. I think that's definitely played a role in him staying at Nottingham Forest until the end of the season. So yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. It'd be difficult. I mean, with price tags banded like that around, it doesn't sound like Nottingham Forest would be able to compete with Premier League clubs if that was to be put on the table in the summer. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a unique situation, really, or possibly maybe not. A bit like Elliot Embleton at Blackpool last season in the playoffs with Sunderland on loan from Sunderland, because Forest are in such direct competition with Middlesbrough for a spot in the playoffs. So possibly if Forest end up finishing the season stronger, they've got a better chance and more of a pull for Spence to go there in the summer. But I don't think they can compete financially unless that they have a tremendous second half to the season and get themselves in the conversation to win promotion.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Jed Spence is going to be a player that we're talking about on Football League World TV for at least the next 6 months. That concludes this afternoon's EFL Transfer Zone, where we've just run through a couple of the high-profile rumours kicking around the 3 divisions at the moment. Coming up tomorrow, we've got the League One Fan Awards with Ned Holmes, and then we've got a couple of debate shows in the afternoon. So please do make sure you tune in for those. There's going to be some interesting stuff going out on the channel. And between now and then, take care of yourselves.